Uh, okay, so let's tell you Halach Yud Aleph again from the top. Oh, we're middle of Perek Zion. Perek Zion of Yibum Chalitza Halacha Aleph. Yud Aleph, I'm sorry. Page 437. Okay, let's try this one more time. Halach Yud Aleph. Shloish Achad, 3 brothers. Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven and Shimon are married to 2 sisters. Let's say Rachel and Leah are sisters. And Levi is married to Stam, a woman. If one of the people married to one of the 2 sisters, one of the 2 brothers, say Shimon passes away. Now, Rachel, the wife of, Rachel, the widow of Shimon, the wife of the sister of Leah, is waiting for Yibum. And Levi, who's married to a random woman, he does Yibum with Rachel, which is perfectly fine. Reuven obviously can't do Yibum, it's his wife's sister. So Levi does it. Okay. Then afterwards, Reuven's wife, Leah, the surviving sister, the other sister, she dies. So now Reuven is a widower. And then afterwards, Levi passes away. And the 2 women, Levi's wife, let's call her Asnas, and Rachel, who was widowed from Shimon, her husband, and was misyabim by Levi, now both fall before Reuven for the potential Yibum or Chalitza. They both are not requiring not a Chalitza or Yibum. They marry wherever they please. One of them, One of them, in this case, Rachel, in our example, she was the wife of Reuven when Shimon passed away. So the moment Shimon died and left Rachel as a widow, Reuven couldn't do Yibum because it was his wife's sister. That prohibition stands for all eternity, even though his wife, the sister, died. Just like it would be if his brother's wife, who was not alive at the time the older brother was born. So even though normally when a person's wife passes away, he could marry the sister. Over here, though, we're saying he can't. Usually, a person's wife dies, and her sister's alive. You can marry the sister. You can't marry her while she's alive. You can't marry her. But after she passes away, you could. Over here, we're saying you can't for some reason. Okay, I'm not sure why that's the case. That's the case that he's saying. Right, so, but same thing would apply. If, for example, a brother passes away, leaves a wife behind who needs Yibum Chalitza, and then the next day, the mother of these two brothers gives birth to a baby boy. That's another baby boy. That baby boy can't do Yibum because he wasn't alive at the time of that the brother died. So because he has an obligation to do Yibum, he has the Isra of Eishesach. That's what he's saying. Like the wife of a brother, the wife of a brother who did not exist at the time of his death. So that just like over there, there's no mitzvah Yibum, therefore there's a regular prohibition of Eishesach. So too over here, that's the same thing. Okay, and the wife of Levi's original wife, who's now also a widow, she's not required Yibum Chalitza because she's the co-wife, so to speak. She is the co-wife. She was widowed at the same time as Rachel was. Okay, Yud Beis. Same thing would be if you have 2 brothers married to 2 sisters, one of them dies, and then afterwards, the wife of so one of the brothers dies.
The living brother's wife dies. A brother dies.
Oh yes, thank you. Right, the living brother's wife dies. So again, the 2 brothers married to 2 sisters. One of the brothers dies. Now one of the sisters is a widow. Needs chalitza. Obviously, she can't get Yibum.
Wife's sister.
Right. It's wife's sister. Then afterwards, the wife of the other brother dies. He's a Surah Lamis. He cannot do Yibum with the other wife. Even though now his wife dies. So usually when a person's wife passes away, that's the surviving sister is permitted to him normally. Since at the time, because it's a regular case of this answers the question of the previous halacha. Because the case of Yibum, since he can't do Yibum because of the prohibition of Eishes Ach, because of the prohibition of his wife's sister. So the issue of Eishes Ach, the issue of marrying the wife's sister is eternal. Doesn't go away. And however, someone divorces his wife, he remarries her, the mace, and then she passes away. In that case, he could do Yibum. Even though at the moment he divorced his wife, that divorcing causes a person divorces their wife. You can't marry their sister after you divorce your wife. Your wife's sister is also you forever. That Isser is revoked, so to speak, when he remarries her. It's as if he never divorced her. And she goes back to the state of where obviously you can't marry your wife's sister either when you're married to her. But when the brother dies, she was in the state of where whatever was done by the divorce was undone. So therefore, it's a regular case of Yibum Chalitza. Yeah. Because remember, so you have two brothers married to two sisters. One of the brothers dies. Right? So it's a Shimon dies. Then Reuven's wife dies. So Reuven can't do Yibum with Shimon's widow. Because the moment Shimon died, he couldn't do Yibum, so therefore he remains also to do Yibum forever because his wife's sister. But if Reuven's wife doesn't die, Reuven divorces his wife, and then he remarries her, even though at the time he divorced her, the same issue that applies of your wife's sister at that moment, but by remarrying her, that falls away. Therefore, if afterwards Shimon passes away, so therefore he's allowed. He can do Yibum. He could do Yibum with the sister of his dead wife. Yud Gimel. Tanash here you have a child, and her father marries her off. Now the father has the right to do that. She's married. I'm going to tell you, right? Then her husband divorces her and remarries her. So remember, the father married this young girl off to this guy. It was a biblical marriage. The father could do that. He divorces her. Now she's like a person who has no father. And then he remarries her, but she's a minor. So it's a marriage which is less potent, less solidified. It's in the Rabbanan only. He passes away. She's a Tanakh still. So can the brother do Yibum with her? The brother cannot do Yibum with her. When the brother divorced her, that made her a full divorcee. So now she becomes his brother's divorcee. Can you marry your brother's divorcee? No. Because the father married her, and therefore just like the marriage was a complete marriage, the divorce is a complete divorce. But the remarriage is not a real remarriage. So I'll Gimel to explain again. If you have two brothers, and one of them gets married to a minor, the father to a child, and the father's the one who marries her off. She's married Matera. Then he gives her a get. He gives the father a get for her, but he divorced her. Now she's divorced Matera. The brother, now this young girl is his brother's divorcee. So it is Matera to marry her. Then the brother remarries her, who divorced her. But now that remarriage is it's not the same level of remarriage because the remarriage that she does on her own, because she's out of her father's jurisdiction, she does it on her own, is not the same solid thing. And therefore, it's not like a regular case where a brother marries his wife, divorces, remarries, and then dies, and therefore we do Yibum Chalitza. Over here, the remarriage is not the same. So she remains the status of a divorcee, not a widow. Not Torah. Therefore, you can't do Yibum. You're Dalit. Who I didn't Same would apply if someone divorces a guy divorces his wife. Then the guy has an accident, there's an explosion, he becomes deaf or deaf mute, gets sick. Then he remarries her. So when he
becomes a
I'm sorry, thank you. She becomes a chereshes. She becomes a chereshes, and he remarries her. So remember, the marriage and divorce is not Torah. The remarriage is Midrabanan because she's a deaf mute now. And he dies away, and he leaves her as a widow with deaf mute. She's also the Yavim. She neither requires nor Yibum because the divorce is Matera, and the remarriage is only Midrabanan. The co-wife of this child or this chereshes, who is forbidden to do Yibum, but Midrabanan was married, so she requires Chalitza Midrabanan. Sorry, but the co-wife of this guy had two wives when he dies. He leaves behind two widows, a regular wife or this child who remarried, or this deaf woman who remarried. So chalitza is a bemes. She could yibum or chalitza. She could yibum or chalitza. Why? Because the marriage to the obligation to do yibum is not Torah. The marriage of but the marriage that the brother had to her was only the rabbanon. So again, when the brother remarried the cheresh, the katana, that's only the rabbanon. But the other wife was married Torah. So therefore, that remarriage of this child, of this deaf youth, does not impact the obligation to the adult of the surviving brother. What if he remarried her when she was a katana or a chereshes, but the megadla and then she grew up, became an adult, which means she's fully married to him, or she became healed, which means she's fully married to him, and then she died, and then the brother died, and now he's behind two widows. Both are healthy, normal adults, although one wasn't for a while. Either could do yibum, because now it's a regular case where they revert back to the regular status of the heter. Tesvav. Shnei achin, two brothers. I think I broke record player over here. Now it's two sisters. And both of them, for example, were children, right? These two brothers both married children who could protest, do miyun, as we said, and dissolve the marriage by protesting, or they're both deaf mutes. In either case, the marriage on the rabbanon. One of the brothers dies. That others, the sister, the surviving, the widow, is not required to do yibum or chalitza because she's the wife of the surviving brother. It's his wife's sister. I mean, we said before, it's your wife's sister is an Issachar's. There's no obligation of yibum chalitza. It's not b'chlal chal. Or pure yibum. Yeah. What if one was an adult, one was a child? The husband, the brother whose wife was 7 years old, died, left behind a 7-year-old widow. The surviving brother has a 20-year-old wife. Again, she's the wife of the surviving brother's sister. She's not required. What happens if the brother who has an adult wife, he dies? So now, should the brother married to the 7-year-old do Yibum Chalitza? On the one hand, she's the wife she's the sister of his wife. On the other hand, they're not really married because only the rabbanon to marry a child. So what do you do? To do Yibum, you're marrying your wife's sister. And it's only your wife and the rabbanon, but still your wife's sister, and it doesn't look appropriate. Not to, but you have to do something because Torah, there's an obligation of Yibum since his wife, his minor wife, his katana wife, is only the rabbanon. So the Torah, the concept of Yibum applies to the surviving widow who's an adult. So therefore, what do you do? Teach the child to say, "I don't want to be married to this person." The marriage is dissolved. This makes the adult permitted to Yibum with the surviving brother. Two brothers, they're both deaf mutes, and they're married to two perfectly normal women. Or both, for example, let's say both women are also deaf mutes. Or one was deaf mute, one was not a deaf mute. The point is that one of these brothers, who's deaf mute, is only married. Both the brothers are only married with their rabbanon because they're both deaf mutes. Or the two sisters who are deaf mutes married to two brothers who are perfectly normal. They're both deaf mute. One is deaf, one's not. Point is that here is not the case. The case is not where you have Reuven and Shimon who are brothers, who are perfectly normal and healthy, married to Rachel and Leah who are sisters, perfectly healthy. That's not the case. One of these four people is a deaf mute, which means one of the two marriages, one of the two unions is the Rabbanon. One of the brothers dies. So the wife is part of Yibum Chalitza because she is the sister of the surviving brother's wife. You can't marry your brother's wife. One of them is not a complete Nisuyin. So if they were both complete Nisuyin, we would say that Yibum, that's exactly the case. But if they were both perfectly healthy, it would be a problem. The two women are not sisters. I'm sorry, they're not sisters. No, they are sisters. Sorry, I was wrong. They are sisters. See if they're both perfectly healthy. if they're both perfectly healthy, there's no Yibum because or Chalitza because it's the sister of your wife. So why do we care over here? Why do we care over here if there's one's a deaf mute? Because since one of the marriages is only the Rabbanon. So he's saying one of the neither of them is a complete marriage, right? One of them is not complete. So for example, the brother, if no, so what's okay. Here's the point. Obviously, if they're both perfectly healthy, normal, it's a sister of his. It's a sister of his. It's a sister of his wife. But what happens? But next halach we'll contrast that with what if one of the marriages was midrabanan because one of the partners in the marriage was deaf mute, and the other marriage both people were healthy. Then it's not so pashut. Then we have a drabanan marriage against the Yibum and Torah if one of the brothers dies. So that's where it gets. But because that's not the case, because both of these unions, one of the partners is a deaf mute. So both marriages are midrabanan. So they're all equal status. So whoever is the widow is the sister of the surviving brother's wife. So you can't do Yibum. Finished. Yudzayin. Shnei achin, two brothers. One is perfectly normal, and one is deaf mute. And they're married to two normal sisters. The point, or even if one is deaf mute, but one is not a deaf mute, the normal healthy adult brother is married to a normal healthy adult woman. The other union, one of the two partners, or both of them, are not healthy. One's a deaf mute. So now we have a regular marriage of Torah. We have another marriage of the other brother, which is only the Rabbanon marriage. Beis HaCherish, and the brother who's a deaf mute, he dies. So she's a Rabbanon widow. So then the brother, the surviving brother, who's married to a healthy normal woman, we say to him that you don't have to be Chalitza. She's not obligated to be Chalitza because she's the wife. She's the sister of his wife. What if the healthy normal brother dies? So now we have surviving the other brother. So now the surviving brother is looking at his sister-in-law, his sister-in-law who's widowed for Yibum. The problem is he's married with the Rabbanon to her sister. Since the marriage of the widow to the normal person was a real marriage, and her connection, the potential connection of Yibum to this surviving brother who's deaf mute, is a real zika. Because remember, you can do Yibum if you're a deaf mute. You can't do Chalitza, you can do Yibum. And his current wife is not really married to Matera because he's deaf mute. Because even though deaf mute can't do marriage, doesn't have the kavana, the intelligence, but Yibum doesn't require intelligence. So a deaf mute or a cherish could do Yibum. He can't do Nisuyin. So his marriage is only the Rabbanon. It's not real. But the Nisuyin potential is real. This cherish has to divorce his wife who's married to the Rabbanon with a get. Because of the real connection to this widow. So he can't be married to two sisters. So he's married his wife in the Rabbanon. He's associated with her sister by virtue of the Torah obligation to do Yibum potentially. That makes his current wife usher on him. He has to divorce her. And the wife, the widow who was married to the regular intelligent person is usher to get married to anybody forever. The surviving brother can't marry her. He was married to her sister. The surviving brother, which is a cherish, can't do chalitza to her. He's a cherish, so she's an aguna, right? Famous Ma'aseh Tzedek, right? If you have a surviving brother who's a katan, let's say, you have to wait till he becomes a bar mitzvah. If he's a cherish, you have to wait till he becomes healed. If he never gets healed, she can never get married. Yudches. Question mark. Why do we make a decree that the cheresh has to divorce his wife? Because we're saying he has to divorce his wife. Oh, because he had a potential obligation to the surviving sister, so his wife is now the sister of this. He can't marry his wife anymore. Since when do you have to force a cheresh to keep the Torah? He's not obligated. He's not obligated. Just a child is not mechuyev to prevent him from eating non-kosher food. The bezin doesn't have an obligation to do so. The parents have an obligation of chinuch, let's say, the father specifically. Well, The father's obligation to teach him Torah. He also has an obligation to Rabbanan, certainly possible Torah, to train him in performing mitzvahs. So why are we not letting this cherish get married to his wife? He's not mechuyev in keeping mitzvahs and training from others. Chacham said, if we let him stay with his wife, we're worried that his sister, who can't get Yibum Chalitza, or sorry, his sister who can't have Chalitza from him, and who we're preventing from getting Yibum from him, since he's married to her sister, is going to go marry whoever she wants. The Yema people are going to say, "Oh, Niftar Mishum Achashisha, she can marry if she wants." Sorry, they'll say that the reason why she married whoever she wanted is because she was the sister of the Cherish's wife. That's a problem because it's not really true. Because since the surviving brother's wife was only married to Rabbanan, that doesn't let the surviving the widow go marry whoever she wants. Therefore, we make him divorce her. This makes it clear that the sister is a divorcee from the cherish, and that obviously prevents the cherish from marrying her. Making that very clear because now it's achas ishtay, and it also prevents her from marrying whoever she wants because she didn't have chalitza. So no one's going to say, "Oh, let this woman marry whoever she wants." The problem is that we're going to think, "Oh, because this cherish is married to her sister, when she passed away and she became a widow, she had no obligation to give him a chalitza. Let her marry if she wants." That's not true though, because the marriage to the cherish was only with the Rabbanan. It doesn't help her marry whoever she wants, right? Therefore, by divorcing his wife, it becomes clear that she. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Two intelligent brothers married to two sisters. One of the sisters is normal. One of the brothers married a deaf mute. The husband married to the deaf mute woman dies. She can marry whoever she wants because she's the sister of the surviving brother's wife. However, if the husband marries a normal woman dies, and now you have the normal brother whose wife is deaf mute, and now he's looking at his sister-in-law needs Yibum. Again, the same problem because he has to shaykh to both people. His wife is married to Rabbanon. This woman is a shaykh to Torah. So over here, it's the woman who's the cherish. The same principle we have in Halacha Yud. So he has to divorce his wife for the get. She requires chitza min Torah. He's a bekech. He could do chalitza, but it's required. The previous case, when the brother-in-law is a cherish, he can't do chalitza. Here, the brother-in-law is normal. The wife is the one who's a cherish. He could do chalitza. Chav. Shnei achin, two brothers. One is a bekeach and one is a deaf mute. The cherish and the brother who's a cherish must have been very wealthy because he had two wives who are perfectly normal. One of them is an erva on the normal brother. Let's say it's his wife's sister or his wife's or it's his own daughter. Let's say it's his own daughter. So Reuven, the normal brother, has a daughter. His brother Shimon, who's a deaf mute, marries his niece, Reuven's daughter, and he also has another wife. Now Mesa Cheresh, and then the deaf mute dies. Both are pater from Yibum in any event. Obviously, one of them can't do Yibum with Reuven because it's his own daughter. It's in my example. If the marriage to the erva, if Shimon as a deaf mute married to the woman who's an erva on Reuven's daughter, if that was a real marriage, a co-wife who's widowed simultaneously with the brother's erva, we said before, is off the hook, just like she is. Just like Reuven can't do Yibum with his own daughter, he can't do Yibum with his daughter's co-wife. That's why they're both part of Yibum. Or alternatively, the ain't if we don't consider it a real marriage, then the whole marriage is not a joke. He's deaf mute, so his marriage isn't real. So whichever way you look at it, they both are part of Yibum Chalitza. They can marry whoever they want. If the person had a daughter who was deaf mute, and his daughter married his brother, right? His brother married his niece, who's normal. So also the same thing as the co-wife requires chalitza, not yibum. Sorry, in this case the daughter, the woman was a chereshes. So again, Reuven had a daughter who was a deaf mute, not a brother. And his brother married his deaf mute niece, and he also had another wife. And then Shimon dies. So Reuven obviously can't do Yibum with his deaf mute daughter. So, but her co-wife requires chalitza. Not Yibum, obviously. Because the marriage to a cheresh is not complete, and therefore he can't do Yibum because there's a sort of a marriage, quasi-marriage. She sort of shared her husband with this deaf mute girl, but she doesn't require chalitza though because the marriage is not complete. If it had been a complete marriage, she would be complete. She'd be a co-wife to a deaf mute. But since it's a quasi-marriage, she requires chalitza. It's as if you might say Reuven. You might say that the fact that Reuven's own daughter, who's a deaf mute, was married to Shimon is irrelevant. So it's almost like she doesn't exist to a certain perspective because she's a deaf mute. So her marriage is not real, not Torah. So it's a regular case where Shimon, the brother, dies, leaves a widow. Reuven has to do Yibum chalitza. We don't let him do Yibum though because his own daughter was a co-wife. His own daughter, but his daughter was a deaf mute though. Therefore, we don't let him do Yibum. Therefore we require chalitza rather than just letting her go off scot-free. If they were both perfectly normal, as soon as Shimon dies, both widows, one of them, or both widows here are widowed at the same time. One of them is Reuven's own daughter, so he can't do Yibum or chalitza. He can't do Yibum. There's no chiyuv chalitza, and the other daughter is scot-free as well. But the problem is that his own daughter is a cheresh, so it kind of puts it in limbo. Chav beis. Whenever we say two sisters, the point is it's irrelevant if it's two sisters, a mother and a daughter, a mother and a granddaughter. The point is when we say two sisters, that both these are two women who are ervas with each other. You can't marry both of them simultaneously. You can't marry two sisters. That's against the Torah. You can't marry mother and a daughter. You can't marry mother and a granddaughter. The same point. We say the sister of his wife or the sister of his yivama. It means a sister or a mother or a daughter. Yeah, the point is again. The point is that it's another woman who he's an erva based on the fact that he married Rachel. He can't marry Leah because Leah is Rachel's sister or Rachel's daughter or Rachel's mother or Rachel's grandmother or Rachel's granddaughter. It's irrelevant. It's all the same point. Okay. And this is why in Lubavitch we don't learn Yevamot.